All right, guys, welcome to Gunner Pavilion, and that was a scrap. With all intents and purposes, Chelsea versus Arsenal at Stamford Bridge. It was always going to be physical. It was always going to be bitty. It was always going to be stop-start. And Chelsea had a game plan that they dragged us to participate in, and we willfully joined in the party. This was a rough one. This wasn't Arsenal, at our best, but certainly wasn't Arsenal at our worst either. So let's get into the three ups and three downs because there's a lot, for us to unpack, from this game. It was Arsenal won, Chelsea won. That's how the game finished. But there was so much more in this game to unpack. So let's get into it. Okay, guys. Okay, first one. Phew. Uh, that was a stressful one, but let's talk about the one up in this. I would say that my first up was Merino. Merino has become sort of a big game player for Arsenal. I remember last year when Havertz went down and Merino started that game, and I think it was against Brentford. May have been against Brentford that he started that game, and we're quite unsure what was going on. But he's lived up to it. He's proving that he's not just a stopgap, he's a player that you can rely on. And the equalizer was just vintage Merino, right? Arriving late in the box, body strength, clear technique, heading the ball into the goal. And he recovered from that horrible Caicedo tackle and that left Chelsea with 10 men. And there were lots of periods during the game. I was kind of thinking it might be time for Gyökeres before he scored, and it's a good thing that Mikel kept faith with him because he was effective in all parts of the game. In defense, in the midfield, also up in attack as well. So Merino for me is massive up in this game, and he's my first up for this Chelsea versus Arsenal game. The second one for me is the attitude, right? And I know a lot of people are not going to talk about this, but Chelsea came with a very clear game plan, and that game plan was to drag Arsenal into a messy, scrappy sort of game. Because if Arsenal is focused on fighting with Chelsea, they're not going to focus on their game. They're not going to focus on what they do well, moving the ball well. So it was very tactical and mostly psychological than anything else. And for us to come back into this game after, because you knew the kind of game this was going to be. After Chelsea scored, doing an Arsenal, so to speak, scoring from a corner, Arsenal didn't collapse. We grew into the game and we're pinning Chelsea back a little bit, just couldn't get into the final stretch to really finish our chances. And Sanchez made some good saves, got to say, but the fact that we didn't collapse, there were other games, that Arsenal would have lost, by one goal. As well, the narrative is going to be about what would have been if Caicedo didn't get sent off. Well, he did get sent off, so we don't know what that could have been. But I think this feels like 2 points drop. We will never know how big this is until the end of the season. That's always a difficulty immediately after a game like this because you just don't know whether it's 1 point gain or 2 points drop, especially coming from a losing position. But that mentality is showing. Mentality is showing. Okay, third up for me is gonna be Nkapie. Nkapie came into this game without our two central defenders, who are arguably the best central partnership right now in the league, but also in Europe. And we're just going through this spell where we're not having them. And it's going to be a test. And I wish that Saliba is coming back soon. I don't know the extent of the knock that he had, but I think Nkapia showed a lot of composure today. I was watching him closely. He was calm on the ball. He had good starting positions, strong recovery runs. The thing is that he's just not Saliba. Our build-up play typically always starts off with Saliba, passing the ball, Nkapia did his best, but not exactly the same kind of quality and vision that Saliba has. So that was something that was taken out of our game today. But I think that this performance will help him. He had the North London derby, which he did well, but didn't really have much to do. And then this was a real test for him, and I think he came out on top in this one. So Nkapia is my third up. But let me know what you guys think. Who are your three ups for this game, or what else did you notice in this game that is worthy of us talking about as a positive coming out of this game? Okay, let's look into the downs. Let's look at the things that we can improve, because as you know, on this channel, we're always trying to give Arsenal just that extra edge, things that they can always improve on. First thing, why did we turn this into a street fight? We got sucked into it. It's exactly what Chelsea wanted, and we played right into their hands. They baited us, absolutely baited us perfectly. There's a lot of emotional reaction, losing structure, and we're rushing passes. A lot of our passing sequences in first and second half were rushed, misplaced. Yeah, it dropped our quality. And who knew, right? People were talking about, what happened in the Sunderland game and whether that was a blueprint for how people could play Arsenal. It certainly felt like Maresca looked at that game and thought, there's anything that I can pick up from here. This cannot happen in the title running. It's great that this is happening in November. And look, we've had a great November. We've won a lot of games, I have to say. And I think, at the start of this run, I think people would have taken, two wins and a draw, across those three games, right? And maybe that draw, people would have wanted that to be against Bayern Munich and then us winning this too. But either way, we've come through a stretch that was very difficult, and no much damage done, not a lot of damage done, I would say. So we got sucked into it. We can't get sucked into it, at all. Um, Second thing, set pieces. What's going on, guys? We are the king of this. What are we doing, allowing Chelsea to score from a set piece? But I guess it just shows how important the likes of Saliba and Gabriel are defensively, especially in set pieces, not just attacking them, but also defending them. I think that we missed that positional uh, superiority that Saliba brings, the organization that he brings. This was a pairing that hadn't had a lot of games together. So I think they came out unscathed, but I would have loved the organization to be a little bit different, a little bit better, going into this game. So it was shaky on first contact, second balls, and defensive organization was just not there. So I'm hoping this is not officially a problem, especially in big away games. We've seen two games now, where Sunderland and Chelsea, both slightly different, but you can feel the elements, being the same in all of this game. So it's definitely something that we need to fix. And the third down for me was the bench. We've been talking about the depth of the squad that Arsenal had. And it didn't feel to me like the bench really, really did a lot to change the way that this game was going. I certainly expected when Gyökeres came in, when Odegaard came in, when Noni Madueke came in, that Arsenal would be, shot after shot after shot against Chelsea. And you got to give Chelsea some credit, right? They didn't lose their defensive discipline. They didn't lose their structure at all, even going down to 10 men. I would dare say that Chelsea played this game perfectly, as you would do with 10 men, and even got their noses in front, so everything's going to be all positive about Chelsea, and that's okay. This was one of those tough away games that you never know what is really how advantageous it was not to lose this game. I think it was important from a momentum perspective. And hey, if we go ahead and beat Brentford in our next game, then of course, this game is going to be quickly forgotten. But just going back to the bench, I don't know whether it's just a post-injury form, and people were not really kicking into gear. I don't want to blame any of the players. I just think that this game didn't allow Arsenal to be at their best. And you've got to give credit to Chelsea for doing that. But I thought we created enough. We created enough to take one of those chances and score. We just didn't. And that's going to be something that's going to leave a bitter test into everyone's mind. But hey, listen, guys, this wasn't Arsenal at our best, but it wasn't Arsenal at our worst either. Stamford Bridge is a difficult place to go for a lot of people. And it did tell me a little bit more about this Chelsea, because going into this game, everyone was bigging them up, after the win against Barcelona. And let's truth be told, Barcelona played into Chelsea's hands, and Barcelona could have had, chances to go up, but they didn't. Chelsea punished them. And so that gave them confidence. But when I look back, at all the other games prior to this, it wasn't as if Chelsea was smashing, lots of good teams. So in a way, I didn't know whether this Chelsea is for real. I think what this game told me is that this Chelsea, in a one-off game, they are going to be for real. They are going to give people problems. Maresca does show me as a manager that can be tactical, doesn't have any pride or ego, and would change his system, change his team, to whatever suits them to get a result. And this was a massive result for Chelsea, absolutely massive result. To take Arsenal, and not lose to them, I think it's going to give them massive confidence. So we'll see. We'll see what this does to Chelsea. But I think it gives me a different dimension, to Chelsea as well. But I also hope that it's put to bed, a lot of this conversation about Esteval, being out of the world, and Caicedo being one of the best midfielders in the league. I hope this game just puts that to best. I love Caicedo, but he's not the best midfielder in the league right now. Chelsea were in a disrupt and destroy mode. So we take the points, we move on, guys, and then we wait for the cavalry to come back fit, ready to go. And hey, that's going to be the real test. We're now getting into December. December football is where everything is won or lost. We need to give ourselves the best chance of coming out of December still on top of this title. And this is all what Man City are waiting for. They are waiting for Arsenal, to slip off in a couple of games. And 4 points, 5 points is nothing. That evaporates in 2 weekends. So Arsenal has to be on it. And unfortunately for Arsenal, we go again on Wednesday against Brentford. That's going to be another tough game. We cannot underestimate Brentford. I'm hoping that the guys are back for that game. I'm hoping that we've learned some emotional lessons from the game today. But guys, we take this one, we move, put it away from our minds, and head quickly into Brentford. Win that game against Brentford, and then now you're looking towards Aston Villa with a different mindset. You don't want to be going into that Aston Villa game with doubts or nerves or anything like that. So, guys, that was a debrief, 3 ups and 3 downs. Let me know in the comment section what you thought about the game as well. If I was to give a man of the match, performance in this game, it is very, very difficult, but I've got to give it to Merino. I think coming up with that goal, keeping us from losing this game was absolutely brilliant. And I can see why, Mikel Arteta loves him. He's in form right now, and he just keep popping up with goals, important goals as well. Same with Trossard. But guys, we'll be previewing the Arsenal-Brentford game, so look out for that as well. That game is going to be on Wednesday. But also check out my other videos as well. I did a preview of this game, and I also did a post-reaction 3 ups, 3 down from that Bayern game as well. But hey, let's take this one on the chin. Have a great week, everyone, and I'll see you in the next preview.